In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a sheet index. And so right now I'm on my cover sheet, which is where my sheet index is going to be placed. And if I scroll over here to the project browser, and you'll see that there is a sheet index already in here. I don't particularly care for the way that Revit has this set up to sort. So I want to change it to match the way that I want to do it. So I'm just going to delete this one and start from scratch. So I'm going to come up here to the View tab to Schedules, and then click this one that says Sheet List. And then I am going to create a couple categories to bring in. So the first one I'm going to create is what I'm going to call Sheet Classification. I'm going to make this a text parameter, and then click OK. And then I'm going to create one that's going to be my header. Make that a text parameter as well. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is create one that I'm going to call sequence. I'm going to make that a text parameter and click OK. And then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to find my sheet number and then my sheet name. And then I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now, the only thing that I really need to see is my sheet number and my sheet name. So I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. And right now, none of my sheets are in order. And I have a pretty long list, and I have some sheets that I'm not using. So the first thing that I'm going to do is get this organized by creating some classifications. So I'm just going to go down the list. So my first one is going to be architectural. So I'm going to call this one O1 architectural. And then I'm going to find my next one. My next one is going to be electrical. So I'm going to call this O2 electrical. And what this is letting me do is to sort these in order that I want to, even though they may not appear in alphabetical order. My next group is going to be furniture. And then finish. And then my last one will be lighting. And then you'll see that I also have some sheets in here that I'm not using. So I can just click these, and I'm just going to delete the ones that I know for sure that I'm not using. And I can kind of tell which ones I'm not using because all of my sheets have been typed in caps lock. But the ones that have upper and lowercase, chances are those were just some sheets that were created in Revit by default. So I'm just going to delete all those ones. Now that I have all of those sheets deleted, the next thing that I'm going to do is come over to my sorting and grouping. And the first thing that I'm going to sort by is my sheet classification. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And what you'll see is that that grouped everything. So here are my my 5 categories. So as I start adding these, so all my A sheets are going to be architectural, you'll see it's going to group these all together. So I'm just going to keep doing this until I have assigned the right classification to all of my sheets. Okay, so I've gotten them all assigned. You'll see that I have one here for my cover sheet, and that's going to be what is general. So we're just going to type that as 00 general. And then all of my sheets are now classified by their discipline. Now the next thing though is I want to create a header and kind of break these up so that it's a little more legible. So basically for the header, it's going to be pretty similar. I'm just going to not do the number because I don't want to see the number on my actual sheet. So I will just add a header for all of these. And then now that I have that done, I'm going to come back to my sorting and grouping, and then we're going to say sort by header. And I'm going to check this box right here that says header. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and then you'll see that this kind of created some breakup. So general has its own, just one sheet, but you'll see right here that my one sheet I've assigned to architectural is under this architectural header, but then I also have a section of architectural that's not under a header. And so all I have to do is just keep coming in here and just change all of these to the architectural. And then everything will be in its own group. And then I'm just going to keep doing this for all of my sheets. Okay, and then the next thing is I want these all to sort in alphanumerical order. You'll see I go from A101 to A401 to A101. So I'm going to come back to my sorting and grouping, and then after this I'm going to say sort by sheet number, and then click OK. And now everything's in the order that I want it to be. If I ever had sheet numbers that didn't match up to this, I can use the sequence column to change the order that they come in if the sheet numbers don't go in the order that I want them to. Typically, I've seen this pretty much only with electrical engineers. Say they'll sometimes have sheet number designations that don't go in alphabetical order. So that's usually the only time I have to use that sequence column. But for our project, we don't really need to use it. So the last thing, and I'm just to make sure that my title is also in all caps. So the next thing is I don't need to see any of this information on the actual sheet. I just want to see the sheet number and the sheet name. And the way that we do this is we can just pick these three columns right here and just hide them. And then that will give us our sheet index. And if I come back to my cover sheet, I can now drag this on to my cover sheet. And I've got a nice sheet index right here. Now, if I ever need to come back and add a sheet, so if I add a sheet, chances are it's not going to have everything assigned to it. So if I were to just add a sheet randomly, you'll see that it's the automatic number assigned was L102, but it didn't put it under my lighting. So I'd have to come here and unhide my columns and then change this and change this to lighting and then change this to lighting to get it sorted correctly. But the problem is if I forget to hide these columns, if I come back to my cover sheet, you'll see that it appears on here. The sheet classification header and sequence columns are here, but I don't want to see those. So the way that I remember to do this is I pick these three columns right here and I change the shading of these columns and I just pick orange because that's just a nice bright color so that if I ever come to my sheet cover sheet, I can clearly see those orange columns, and that's just a reminder to me that I got to come in here and hide those columns so that I don't see them. And then that gives me a nice clean sheet index on my cover sheet.